Good evening. My name is Jerry Cochran, and I would like to call the City of Pasco Planning Commission to order. I'd like to welcome all those in attendance this evening and ask you to join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Jay, can you turn off your microphone that we won't get feedback that way? Thanks. To begin tonight's meeting, I'd like to ask the clerk to call the roll.
Tanya Bowers, absent. Paul Mendez.
Present.
Kim Lerman.
Present.
Abel Campos.
Present.
Isaac Myram.
Present.
Rachel Teal.
Present.
Jay Hendler.
Present.
Jerry Cochran.
Present.
Mr. Chair, there are 7 members present, and we do have a quorum.
Excellent. The Planning Commission is an advisory board made up of volunteers appointed by the City Council. The purpose of the Planning Commission is to provide recommendations to the City Council regarding the changes to the city's comprehensive plan, land use updates, block grant allocations, and zoning code. The Planning Commission is tasked with considering the long-term growth and development of the community, the impact of land use decisions on the community, livability, economic opportunity, housing affordability, public services, and the environment. I'd like to remind the audience that tonight's proceedings are being broadcast live on the City of Pasco's Facebook page and on Charter Cable Pasco Channel 191, and will be rebroadcast several times in the next month. The meeting is also being recorded, so you can watch it on the City of Pasco's website, which is pasco-wa.gov. Click on Video on Demand link and make your selection there. There's copies of the meeting agenda available online on the City of Pasco website, and so you may follow along with the meeting. At this time, I'd like to ask anyone in the audience to mute your microphones and cell phones to prevent interruptions that would occur during our meeting. For those present this evening, when you're given the opportunity to address the commission, please go ahead and raise your hand for us so that we know that you'd like to address the commission. Speak directly into the microphone and state your name and city of address for our records. Before we begin tonight, on the meeting tonight, I need to remind the audience and the Planning Commission that Washington state law requires public meetings like the one being held this evening, not only to be fair, but also appear to be fair. In addition, Washington state law prohibits the Planning Commission members from participating in discussions or decisions in which the member may have a direct interest or may be either benefited or harmed by the Planning Commission's decision. An objection to any Planning Commission member hearing any matter on tonight's agenda needs to be aired at this time or it will be waived. First, are there any Planning Commission members who have a declaration at this time regarding any of the items on our agenda?
This is Commissioner Mendez. I have a declaration in regards to item 6. I own property in the unincorporated island within the City of Pasco. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Mendez. Anyone else? All right. Second, is there anyone in the audience this evening who would object to any of the commission members hearing any of the items on the agenda? Hearing none, let the record show there were no declarations on this side. So we value your input here. We as the Planning Commission need and value your input. It helps us to understand the issues more clearly and to make better recommendations to City Council. Furthermore, in many cases, your input here at the Planning Commission meeting is your only opportunity to get your facts and opinions placed in the official record of the City Council that it will use to make its decision. I encourage you to take full advantage of the opportunity. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes from Those meeting minutes would be from Thursday, January 20th, 2022. These meeting minutes were mailed out to the commissioners ahead of time. I trust you had the opportunity to take a look at them, and I would entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes at this time.
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Myram, and I move to approve the meeting minutes as provided.
Thank you, Commissioner Myram.
Commissioner Hamler, I second.
Great. Commissioner Myram moved and Commissioner Handler seconded to approve the meeting minutes from Thursday, January 20th, 2022. All those in favor of approval, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Shall let the record show that the meeting minutes were unanimously approved. The first item on the business agenda is unfinished or old business, and we have one item on the agenda tonight that had previously come before the commission, and that item is utilities in the urban growth area, I think.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This item has been before the commission before, and it establishes, or it asks the commission for their input on a policy relating to providing city utilities within our urban growth area. I think the commission recognizes the perspective provided in the last 2 or 3 meetings that you've had. Essentially, the Pasco urban growth area has 3 very different scenarios in terms of development and existing development and potential development. The first would be the Riverview area, which is generally located south of Interstate 182. That's mainly been developed in the county, and it contains a number of challenges relating to providing utility services, connectivity with city streets, and a whole host of urban considerations. The second scenario involves the 2008 urban growth area, which I provided a map that you can tell the difference with in terms of colors. There's not much undeveloped land in the old 2008 urban area, with the exception of the Horrigan Farm property, which is located south of Burns Road and west, almost at the Columbia River, and you can see that on the map as well. And then the third scenario is the recently adopted urban growth area, which is basically completely void of development considerations. It's almost all farmland right now. And so again, staff has prepared 3 different scenarios for dealing with the 3 different situations for the Pasco urban area. The area south of 182, the Riverview area, I'll just provide a very quick summary, Mr. Chair. This area, staff would propose that city water be provided in conjunction with building permits on existing single-family lots. That's, I wish I had, I don't see it on here, and, pardon me.
So on the map that we have in our papers, the area you're talking about, is that the green, yellow, or?
It's the light green.
Right green.
Yeah, and so there are a number of existing lots in that area. Candidly, this green area is probably going to be underutilized in terms of development for many, many years. But the intent is not to deprive people that own existing lots the ability to get city water, assuming they can in fact get city water. Actually, a number of homes in this area use groundwater wells, but we don't want to preclude a building permit holder to utilize city water, assuming that they can get it. However, if there is a subdivision of property within the Riverview area, then staff recommends a policy of extending city sanitary sewer with any extension of city potable water. And then as an ancillary consideration, staff would recommend that obviously we're going to have to develop a procedure because in all cases that's not going to be practical, but it's going to be up to a professional to tell us why. And we would develop some kind of administrative procedure for that to occur. And then lands within the 2008 urban growth area, which are represented by the light, I guess it's yellowish orange. You can see the Horrigan Farm area at the very left or west of the map. The area north of that is all developed with roughly half-acre or larger lots. Sanderson Estates, I can't remember the names of the subdivisions now, but that's basically built out. And then there are some properties further east that are not likely, again, to consider development proposals in any fashion anytime soon, at least. Staff would recommend that properties within these areas be provided, again, potable water in conjunction with building permits for single-family homes on existing lots. However, subdivisions of parcels within this area will require, again, extension of sewer in conjunction with city water. And as a condition of that extension, we would require that city standard streets and sidewalks be achieved in conjunction with the utility extension agreements. And then the easiest one to consider is the new urban growth area, the pink. Again, that's a clean slate. We just recommend that annexation be a condition of extension of utilities, and that solves the question. Originally, I provided the commission with the concept that our legal team would be developing a series of code amendments that would make this happen. They're slammed all the time, of course, but considering the extended code amendment and the number of revisions necessary, we decided it would be best to develop the policy first and then come back with the code amendments, because they're going to be varied depending on what City Council ultimately chooses, again, based on the Planning Commission's recommendation. So I provided a motion if the Planning Commission is comfortable with that. If not, any discussion of additional information or questions would be certainly well received at this time.
Great, thank you. Just to make sure the procedures are right here, is this old business, have we had public hearing on this, or would that be future?
We have, excuse me, we have had public hearing, and actually thank you for mentioning that. For a couple months now, I've proposed this exact same staff report to the Home Builders Association. And I finally discussed with their director, might not have been, maybe it was last week, but if not last week, the week before that. Essentially, I think the Tri-Cities Home Builders Association is neutral on this. They recognize the need for a policy because it provides predictability. And they don't really see this as impacting, at least adversely impacting their association.
So the process now is we would agree or move to the policy things, and then you'd come back with code amendments, and those code amendments would also have a public hearing.
They would.
Great. Okay. Well, I'll open it up to commissioners. Is there the discussion or question or feedback for the staff on this? Not hearing any. I had a clarification. When you when you say some of these policy statements, like when you say city potable water in conjunction with building permits for single-family homes, does that imply that? I guess my question in all of these is is the cost and the burden on the city, or is it the developer and the homeowner when they file the permit to do those? Because there's, all of these have that activity, and I just want to know what the assumption is that we're assuming that that's part of the developer expense when they're doing it, or other?
No, that's correct. And that's why if you are familiar with the Green Riverview Islands, it's very apparent that whatever water system those properties are using at this time will be there for some while. But the cost for extending water would be a responsibility of the owner or builder, and the requirements for extension would also be, and you know, it may include oversizing. You just never know, but there are some serious development issues in the Riverview area that are going to be very challenging for any future density considerations.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I'm actually in the Riverview area. I'm not in the donut, but I have a well. And if my well ever failed, I'm about 500 feet away from city water and sewer, and I would expect it would be on me to cover that 500-foot extension, not the city. And so I think it's also in spirit with, you know, hey, the city's invested in this infrastructure, taxpayers have paid for it, so you need to utilize it and cover the cost to get there. So that seems consistent. So any other feedback from commissioners or questions to staff?
Mr. Chairman, pardon me again, I wanted to also explain that in your situation, and that's probably not an unusual situation, there is a tool that the city has in its municipal code that is called the Latecomer Agreement. And so the ability for a water extension or sewer extension to happen on your costs could be contingent upon future property owners connecting to that line that you've extended, and for a period of time then reimburse you for the appropriate and proportional cost that you incurred when you did that extension. And that's a tool that's used by developers all over the place, normally not for just one lot, of course, but for subdivisions in particular.
Well, that's good to know and helpful. And that's both for water and sewer sanitary?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And roadways.
Oh, great to know. And so the other thing I noticed is when you do that water or sewer extension, in some cases, I guess it's only the subdivision case, it also then puts a requirement for proper roads and sidewalks. Is that the case as well, just for the subdivisions, not for the individual lots?
Yeah, it wouldn't be appropriate to piecemeal that for individual lots. And that's everything I say I have to qualify, but that's making the assumption that the water line is in the road. So you would, of course, patch the road to whatever standard is appropriate or applicable, but you would not create a new road segment, no.
Excellent. Well, commissioners, I'll open it up. Does anybody have any questions or guidance for staff? I'd also, if nobody does, I think we are also open to a motion, if somebody has a motion.
This is Commissioner Myram. No direct comments to make. I think these guidelines are actually quite practical, quite responsible, considering the substantial investment that goes into public infrastructure. So I'm comfortable with these guidelines, and I think they would be a good starting point looking at code sections.
Excellent. Thank you, Commissioner Myram. Anyone else have feedback or want to drop a motion?
This is Commissioner Steele. I had a question just regarding the potable water lines. How does it work with the irrigation lines and those requirements? Is that looped into the potable water, or is that completely separate based on subdivision?
Yes, Commissioner Teal, it is completely separate. Only in rare circumstances in Riverview, I think, is city irrigation even provided. It's mainly wells or the Franklin County Irrigation District and this wouldn't be a consideration for them.
Okay, so say someone, like Commissioner was saying, had a well and it goes bad and they want to hook to the city, they wouldn't have irrigation?
Well, in theory, they could. If the well went bad, there are a number of wells that are only for irrigation. So, you know, in theory, if it went bad for potable, it doesn't necessarily mean it's bad for irrigation. So that could happen.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Teal. Yeah, in my case, I have an irrigation well and a house well, and I would, you know, either of them went bad, they would just stay irrigation. So, but I can also envision a scenario where the person wants to connect to irrigation, and I guess they'd have to deal with that with the irrigation district. Okay, anything else? Questions, feedback, or a motion?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Campos. I agree with Commissioner Meyer. I'm looking at all three. I think the guidance are great. I think they're really specific for each three areas. And so I do want to make the motion. I move the Planning Commission recommend that the utility extension policies for the Pasco urban growth area contained in the January 12, 2022 memoranda to the Planning Commission be adopted by City Council.
Second that.
I hear a motion by Commissioner Campos. Who is the second by? Paul?
Commissioner.
Great. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed?
Aye.
All right. Let the record show that the motion passed unanimously. So next steps then will be code amendments in future meetings. That'll either be workshopped or public hearing.
Yeah, it'll proceed to a council workshop, and then probably a pretty substantial list of associated code amendments.
Excellent. All right, next on our agenda is the series of public hearings. We have one item on the public hearing, and that is corner lot fencing. So I guess we'll start with a staff opening comments.
Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. I'm here tonight to discuss corner lot fencing and to formally propose option 2 from the December 16th Planning Commission meeting and the amendment to the residential design standards from the November Planning Commission meeting. Before going into detail on those, I'll give a quick background on the current corner lot fencing design standards. As it currently stands, the maximum height of fencing in all front yard areas is 3.5 feet. The maximum height of fencing in flanking front yard areas it varies between the lot design. So if you have two corner lots that form the entire frontage between two parallel or nearly parallel streets, and neither home accesses the shared street, fences can be 6 feet tall out to the property line. If there's any other condition, or if one of the properties accesses that shared street, then 6-foot fencing fences taller than 3.5 feet have to be set back to the building line of the neighboring property. The maximum height of fencing in rear or side yards is 6 feet as well. So to give some details and diagrams on this, this is a condition where both houses, they form the entire frontage between two streets, and neither house accesses that shared street. So 6-foot fencing would be allowed all the way out to the property line or anywhere within that green area shown at the top of the diagram. And this is a real life example of that. You'll notice in the left image that fence extends out to the sidewalk where the property line is located, and that neither house accesses the shared street, and that they form the entire frontage between two streets as well. The other condition in this diagram, you'll see that the house on the right accesses the shared street. So fencing for the house on the left actually has to be set back a distance equal to the building line of the house on the right. if that fence is to be greater than 3.5 feet. And to give a real world example of that, you'll notice that on the image on the left, that fence does not extend out to the property line and is set back to the building line of the neighbor behind them. And so I'll start off with a refresher on the proposed amendment to the residential design standards. It was a large point on how do we mitigate or prevent situations where we create dangerous access points. So in this case, the development to the north was plotted and built out first. So that house accesses, not the shared street. And if that house was built and a fence was proposed before the house to the south of it was built, they would be allowed to have that fence all the way out to the property line adjacent the side street. And then when the house to the south came in for building permit, there's nothing that would restrict them from having their driveway all the way up against that fence. That's how we end up with driveways that have not safe visibility. So the proposal for the proposed amendment to the residential design standards would be that if you have two corner lots that form the entire frontage between two parallel or nearly parallel streets, neither dwelling will have primary access or be addressed off of the shared street. And this would prevent, going forward, any instance where we could potentially have dangerous access points. And so this is option 2 from the December Planning Commission meeting. It's that fences greater than 3.5 feet must be set back a distance of 15 feet from the property line adjacent to the shared flanking street. So this gets rid of the dependency on your neighbor's building line. It makes it easier to understand and more logical. And to give a real world example, this is an example that I was able to find showing a fence that is set back 15 feet. Right now, under current standards, is considered non-conforming, but the proposed amendment would have it be conforming. And you can kind of see the fence there on the corner of Ruby and Agate. A note that I would say here is that under current fence design standards, that fence has to be set back to the building line of the property just to the north. It's across the street from that one. Yeah, I apologize. It's pretty thin line. So that fence would essentially need to be set back behind the house, and that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And the proposed amendment would not only allow that fence to be in a sensible location, but would also provide an additional amount of 6-foot tall fencing backyard area. So if we go to the next slide, this kind of shows that that fence does extend beyond the building line of the current fence location, and it is a sensible distance away from the street right of way as well. And we can see a better image of that on the next slide. So this is looking down the shared street, and anybody backing out of that gravel driveway is going to have a good amount of clear view to be able to safely back out of their driveway, not have to worry about oncoming traffic or pedestrians, and it provides the corner property a fair amount of backyard space. All right. And with that, those are the two amendments that I'm proposing tonight, the standard 15-foot setback and the amendment to the residential design standards.
Excellent. First, commissioners, any comments or feedback or questions? I know you guys have done a lot of work on this, and it sounds like, so the ordinance draft language with the red, that's option 2, that reflects option 2 then, okay?
Correct.
Commissioner?
This is Commissioner Myron.
Great, go ahead, Commissioner Myron.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to thank staff for their work on this. Been a lot of public meetings on this. We have heard from the community about wanting to maintain flexibility for homeowners that do want taller fences, taller than 3.5 feet. I think this provides that flexibility while putting a premium, or I should say an emphasis on safety. So thanks for all the work, and I'm supportive of option 2 as presented.
Thank you, Commissioner Myram. Any others? Okay, hearing no more questions or comments from the commissioners, this is a public hearing item. So if there's anyone here that wishes to speak on this item on the agenda, now is the time. We'd ask you to step forward to the microphone and clearly state your name and city of address. Or anyone on the phone, I should say. Sir, are you here for this item? Okay, thank you. All right, seeing no public members wishing to provide comment or feedback on this item, I'll open up one last time for commissioners for any other questions or feedback, and I would also entertain a motion for staff recommendations that's described in your documentation for tonight.
This is Commissioner Lehrman.
Go ahead, Commissioner Lehrman.
I'd like to make a motion. I move the Planning Commission recommend to the Pasco City Council the proposed amendments to the residential design standards and the fences, walls, and hedges design standards as contained in the January 20th, 2022 Planning Commission staff report.
Thank you, Commissioner Lehrman. Have a second?
Commissioner Handler, I'll second.
Thank you both. That was moved by Commissioner Lehrman and seconded by Commissioner Hendler. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? Let the record show that the motion passed unanimously. And I know staff is relieved to be able to move forward on this. It's been a long slog. And again, as other commissioners express, thanks for all your work and your willingness to listen to the community. And I think we found a good, happy medium that does the best we can. We can't get all the edge cases, but this is pretty good. So. All right, so the next is our workshop series, and we have 3 items on the workshop. And the first is item A, which is a memo on the update to the Broadmoor Master Plan and Environmental Impact Statement. So staff, take it away.
Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. The presentation this evening will focus on the Broadmoor Master Plan and staff and our consulting efforts to move forward with developing a rather significant and important piece for the city of Pasco and the region. And you can see the outline of the Broadmoor area in context of Pasco, and also on the bottom right, you can see the context of the Broadmoor area relative to the Tri-Cities area. And on the next slide, a high overview of what and apologize for the font size on this, of the master plan and EIS objectives. Some of this will be very similar to the Urban Growth Area Comprehensive Plan EIS in terms of the components of it. But in general, an evaluation and analysis, considering the infrastructure and transportation planning necessary to support the significant growth in the Broadmoor area, the land uses to accommodate the projected growth, the city's ability to invest in the infrastructure utilizing grants and capital funding, and predictability on the environmental review and mitigation process. There's some significant critical area within the Broadmoor area. Reduced permitting time for individuals is a benefit as a result of the EIS, and also the planned growth with potential higher property values as expected as an outcome. And in general, the planned growth to align with the comprehensive plan that was recently adopted by the Planning Commission and Council not too long ago. On the next slide, again, an overview on the comprehensive plan goals for Broadmoor. And again, apologize, and I can submit the presentation to the Planning Commission following this meeting, so you have an electronic copy of it as well. Accommodate future growth at higher densities with mixed-use strategies. Infrastructure capacity to support future growth, including housing, retail, employment, and recreational opportunities. And strategic alignment of public investments, both current and planned, to support economic development in the Broadmoor area and the region. And below, a snippet from the comprehensive plan specific planning goals or land use goals to accommodate a broad range of residential land uses and to provide and put the community in position to support economic development. This is a summary of our process to date. In the early summer 2021, staff reissued a SEPA determination, environmental determination of significance for the Broadmoor Master Plan and EIS. A component of that was the adoption of the comprehensive plan. There was a pause in the development of the Broadmoor effort to allow the comp plan to move forward. Throughout the couple of years, development in the Broadmoor area actually moved forward prior to the development of this plan. So a new scoping of the EIS was conducted so that we could develop alternative land uses to address both the comprehensive plan and mitigate the existing growth that has occurred in and near the Broadmoor area. This past fall, the city held numerous meetings with property owners, builders, stakeholders, and agencies that would be affected by the Broadmoor area. This included all property owners, including agencies such as Ben Franklin Transit, the Pasco School District, United States Bureau of Reclamation, South Columbia Basin Irrigation District, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. They own significant land along the shoreline. The Washington State Department of Natural Resources and Fish and Wildlife and Transportation, and along with our own Public Facilities District, Public Works, and Parks and Recreation staff. Over the past couple of months, staff has been working with our consulting team to develop an alternative land use that could address the comments and input received from all of the affected agencies and the property owners within the Broadmoor area. And we're now working on developing, finalizing those land uses, which will show on the next screen here, and moving forward with the plan and the EIS itself. So on the next slide, you'll see two separate land uses. The alternative one, which is no change. This is what was adopted in the comprehensive plan. And on the right is alternative 2, which is a comprehensive plan growth target. And the significance of both is on the left is what was adopted. Unfortunately, growth moved forward before the plan could be completed. So there is some nonconformance and underdeveloped densities in the on the left, where there's significant low density development that no longer achieves the densities of the Broadmoor plan or the vision that has been stated by council and the public. So on the right is our effort to address and mitigate that. So on the right, on the next slide, you'll see the breakdown of the land use categories. On the left is alternative 1 from the comp plan, and on the right is the proposed alternative number 2. And you'll see that it's a little bit shorter. We've simplified and removed some of the land uses. We thought that would work best to accommodate the property owners, the brokers, developers, etc. And on the next slide is how the land uses would be implemented utilizing our existing zoning districts. And you'll see a few asterisks for mixed use waterfront, open space zoning district, and the open space reserve. Those will be zoning districts that need to be created, and those will be created within the master plan, and it's our intent to adopt those when the master plan comes to the Planning Commission, eventually council for adoption as well. So the master plan will require the creation of new zoning districts. Some of the benefits of the proposed alternative 2 land use is that it simplifies the land uses. It incorporates the existing and approved residential development. It includes the evaluation of open space in critical areas and addresses and integrates input and feedback from property owners and stakeholders. It also implements the comprehensive plan growth targets and supports stated council and community vision for the Broadmoor area. And the next series of slides show a few examples from our consultant that our consultant has put together in a generalized version of the design and development standards that will be derived out of the master plan or included with the master plan, including pedestrian-friendly and outdoor spaces with, you can see the relationship to the street, so walker-friendly, non-motorized friendly, and various examples here of sidewalks, extended sidewalks along storefronts, etc. On the next slide, you'll notice that in the alternative to land use that there's a few areas where there's mixed use. The land use is attributed to the Broadmoor area, and it is our intent to have the mixed use have specific standards which exhibit activity centers, areas where you expect to see a lot of businesses and residential opportunities, but certainly with mixes of public spaces to facilitate the quality of life environment. So building placements will be important, identification of central gathering spaces, and the necessary requirements to accommodate both vehicles, sidewalks, the places that general people would want to be at in the Broadmoor area. More on the center nodes and corridors concept. This is where this will require changes to our development standards within the zoning code, and you'll see buildings placed closer to the corner, brought closer to the street to enhance the walkability and the public realm environment within the Broadmoor area. One of the components and visions for the Broadmoor area has been a mix of uses to accommodate the facilitation of housing, retail, commercial, shopping opportunities, recreation, etc. And that can be accomplished both with horizontal mixed use, vertical mixed use, within the site, on the site. And this is an example of what that would look like or could look like in the Broadmoor area. So varying densities, heights will have to be addressed and revised within the specific zoning codes applicable to here. And just general, an opportunity for builders to come in with a lot of creativity or developers to come in with some creativity and in the mixed use area, propose and construct sites that leave themselves to the benefit of the Broadmoor area. And on the next slide, a few notes about accessibility with specifically on parking. In the mixed use areas, it is the intent to place parking behind the building, and that's if you, the prior slides, you had the sidewalk, the street, the sidewalk, and then the building, the storefronts, versus what you have on the bottom left corner, which is an exhibit here in West Court Street, where you've got an arterial with small sidewalk and then a significant distance both in travel and also in kind of eyesight to get to the actual storefront. So it's our intent to use the Broadmoor area to begin to bring some of these storefronts and these buildings closer to the street, again, to enhance the built environment aspect within this part of the city. And then lastly, a quick overview of where we're at in the remaining part of the process. So now through early spring, staff will work with our consultant to complete the draft environmental impact statement. There will be a review conducted internally before it is a draft EIS is issued in early May, and that'll include a public comment period. If we do plan on being in front of the Planning Commission numerous times over the remaining part of the winter and spring on the Broadmoor plan. This will include a review of comments received both from agencies, commission, members of the public, and in the summer, address those comments with the final preparation of a master plan, which includes the vision, the guidelines, the associated development changes, code amendments, you'll see those, the completion and issuance of the final environmental impact statement, and then again, presentations to both the Planning Commission and City Council this May, June, and July. So that concludes a brief update on the Broadmoor Master Plan. We do anticipate our consultant being present for a presentation likely in February, certainly by March, to give a little bit more of a detailed update about the specifics of the master plan and the EIS process. I do want to note that the city is working diligently, specifically with regards to both transportation and critical area mitigation. We've had significant conversations and coordination with both the Washington State Department of Fish and Wildlife and also the Washington State Department of Transportation and the Federal Highway Administration with regards to addressing the transportation impacts that are likely to be the result of the development in the Broadmoor area. Most of these were addressed in some form or manner in the comprehensive plan. The transportation system master plan that the city is developing and nearing completion is a refined version of the comprehensive plan analysis for transportation. And the city has entered into an agreement with the consultant to develop a feasibility and analysis on 182 between Road 68 and or specifically on the Broadmoor Boulevard area to again accommodate the growth here. So there's a lot of work, a lot of analysis ongoing right now. And that'll all be a part and addressed in some form or manner within the master plan and certainly the EIS. So with that and this presentation, I'm happy to answer any questions from the commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Commissioners, any questions or comments or feedback for staff on direction on this?
Yeah, I have a question. Jacob or Rick, so I'm a little confused. So we're still working on developing the master plan. And the reason why I asked that question, I'm a little confused. I hang out a lot daily out at the John L. Scott office working with Dennis Giese on some projects and stuff like that. But a couple of the brokers came up to me and said, Jay, what's going on with the Adams property and the Broadmoor master plan? And why are we being escorted around the Adams property with brokers from Seattle telling us they're going to start construction by the end of this year? And I didn't have an answer for that. I simply said, hey, they're still working on a master plan. I think that's right. I said, I don't understand how they could be selling anything. So I was a little confused by that, and I didn't have an... Anyway, can you shed a little light on that for me? Is that in fact the case? They're selling land out there now?
Well, I don't know that anything is closed, but in the, and I'll go all the way back to, well, it's going to go all the way back to the very first slide, but a portion of the Broadmoor Master Plan area, about 160 acres, is in the city already zoned.
Oh, okay.
With C1 zoning, which is, the prime retail zoning that's applicable. So this, it's, it's hard for me to tell here, but there's 160 acres in this area right here.
Okay.
That is, yeah, that's already zoned commercial. And, there's utilities available. So there are a number of moving parts, and there's about a dozen balls in the air with all sorts of stuff. There's a proposed wholesaler, retailer that you've heard about that used to be a secret. There's another developer interested in some kind of food/retail, bigger box kind of operation along with some satellite retail on the outskirts, which is pretty typical. But those are all pending all of the utility and transportation improvements that Jacob has just described. Significant, well, there's roughly $8 million worth of transportation improvements alone that are necessary to just accommodate just the commercial growth that we think we know about.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, most of them are residential, but so it's 160 acres, did you say, Rick?
That is
160 acres.
Currently
It's
in the
already
city
got
and
zoning,
Yeah.
and that's probably where all this is taking place.
Yes.
But it's, just curious, wouldn't it be, wouldn't they be well advised to say, hey, put on the brakes a little bit until this master plan is done?
Yeah.
So that they comply a little bit with what is right on the gateway to the rest. I'm just throwing out some concerns.
Yeah.
About the process. Having been through this kind of thing before, but you say, wait a minute, we got a master plan going on. You guys, we're not going to be able to answer any questions until that thing is really further developed. Just a thought. Anyway, thank you for the input.
Thank you, Commissioner Handler. Yeah, I don't think anything, including a master plan, is going to stop salesmen from selling, but that's a good point to bring up. So
These brokers told me that these were some heavy hitters from Seattle.
Interesting.
Escorting them around.
Other commissioners with comments or feedback or direction for staff on this?
This is Commissioner Myram. Sort of along the lines of, all the activity that's being considered in the area. By the time we get to July of this year, through this process, does staff anticipate maybe a need for additional updates, or as we move forward, have things become more and more refined, and you feel like we've really got our hands around where the plan will be when it's ready to be finalized?
I think the best way to answer that is there will likely always be room for refinements to the adopted plan. I would say that the development alternative number 2, part of the reason for some of the significant changes is due to the input and feedback we received directly from the property owners, some of the developers, the realtors, and the brokers. And so that mixed use that you can see, and again, I'll send this to the Planning Commission directly following the meeting. That light pink, purple color for mixed use is intended to address both a combination of residential and commercial uses, both vertical and horizontal. So it's a pretty flexible in terms of use, but the development and design standards will be critical. That's where we'll get into the form, the facades, more of the built environment, the treatment of the streetscapes, the cross sections, etc. That are the results and included within the master plan. Those I wouldn't believe those would need additional updates, or else they would deviate from the intended vision that's been presented about the Broadmoor area to both the public and the commission and council.
Thank you, Commissioner Myra, for the question, and Mr. Gonzalez for comments. Any other commissioners with comments or feedback?
So this is Commissioner Mendez.
Go ahead.
So it sounds to me like the city, we have been given another opportunity to tweak the Broadmoor master plan, and we're coming up with alternative 2, which will allow us to do that. One of the things that caught my attention was where it says here that it'll maximize the growth and density potential of the area. And I guess what I'm asking, does that mean that it will increase residential density and lead to maybe more affordable residential lots?
I'm not sure about the affordability or the price point, but one of the intents of the second alternative that you see on the screen was that it addresses the existing development that occurred both north of Burns Road and within the Broadmoor area. In the existing and current comprehensive plan future land use map, right in the middle, you can see, I don't know, maybe 200 or so acres of low density development. In the existing comp plan, most of that is a designated of medium density, which is typically 12 or 6 to 19 or so units an acre. Might have that a little bit off, but certainly more than 2 to 5, which is what we currently have in place there. So we've developed the alternative 2 to incorporate what's going on there and increasing the development potential of the surrounding land uses. To again make up for the fact that in a big portion of the Broadmoor area we will have low density development. So it likely would yield to additional lots, but within the comprehensive plan constraints of roughly 7,300 to 8,000 units within a full build out. You're looking at 2040 for the horizon year. But yes, likely the intent is to address and at least make it an option for increased housing options in the Broadmoor area.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say, I think that's a definite plus. Affordability is it's a great concern. I think it's nice to have be able to afford a half-acre lot or a 1-acre lot in North or West Pasco, but many of our residents may not be able to afford that. So whatever we can do to address that would be welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Mendez. Any others?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Campos.
This is Commissioner Lehrman.
Why don't we go with Commissioner Campos and then Commissioner Lehrman?
All right. Just want to say thank you so much, Mr. Gonzalez and staff for that presentation. I do love alternative number 2. I think the fact that it does accommodate for that denser retail and commercial and residential development is key. And it gives us that option, that gives us the audible to really change that density for the residential. I really, really love. But I also love the fact that with the street pattern, it's going to give us more ability to have that kind of that well-connected portion of it. And so I think that's going to be very key. I know for being in the 68 area, we are not so much well-connected. There's not a lot of outlets and stuff. So to have that over there, it's going to be amazing. And so I really do support alternative number 2, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner Campos. Commissioner Lehrman.
Yes, thank you. Piggybacking on to what Commissioner Campos had said about all the design of number 2 and the positives about it. I really appreciate what the city has put together for sharing out with the community and the effort that they're put into trying to make sure to keep the public informed in this very exciting time that we have to plan out the vision of what Pasco looks like. And a lot of the residents are having questions. And so thank you for your effort of trying to be able to help answer those questions and being as transparent as possible. I do have a question over there on open spaces along Columbia River, right along the bend there. Is that Army Corps of Engineer land, the wildlife refuge, or is that other kind of park-like land use?
That is predominantly owned and operated or maintained by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, probably the first 200 to 300 feet or so along the western side of Shoreline Road. Between Shoreline and the Columbia River is mostly the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, so there might not be much we can do there in terms of actual physical structures, but is our intent to at least preserve the open space component of it.
And then what is that little section going into all that pink? Sorry, I can't see roads or anything on the map. Yes, right there.
That's also Army Corps of Engineer land, Commissioner Lehrman.
That is all my questions for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lehrman. Anyone else? One piece of it, for me, I'm with the others. I like our alternative 2. I think it's simpler, and I think it allows more options. I didn't like that option 1 had no low density, and I think there's a good balance of different types. I think like probably everyone else in Pasco, they're just all bracing for this not being Road 68 Part 2, and so I think it's interesting to me, does all the things that are going on with transportation planning, are they staying in sync with this, or are they evolving separately? Because Jacob, you sent something like in December around the transportation plan survey, and I was looking at that, and they've already got like the stop lights and improvements for the transportation on Broadmoor planned out, and it seems like that's evolving in a vacuum from this, or is there a way to make sure, because that's my big fear, is I worry this is all great, but is it just going to be another Road 68? And I think a lot of citizens are worried the same.
Well, in terms of the transportation development in the Broadmoor area, fortunately, we're working with the same consultant group who is wrapping up our transportation master plan. So they know exactly what it is in terms of the context of we're working with in the Broadmoor area. In fact, yesterday we had a discussion with both our consultant, the Federal Highway Administration and Washington State Department of Transportation, to talk about further detailed analysis that council had agreed to back this fall with addressing the specific mitigation necessary with the Broadmoor development. So the comprehensive plan, extremely comprehensive citywide, the transportation master plan, a refined version of that, the feasibility analysis that we're working on with our consultant is as probably refined as you can get beyond the project level permitting of a specific project. And that is, again, the geographic scope is at Broadmoor Boulevard area, or the Broadmoor Boulevard corridor. And then the EIS will have a pretty lengthy transportation evaluation component of it to address the impacts of both alternative 1 and alternative 2 and the necessary mitigation to address that. The master plan itself will be the document or the plan that's got all the photos and the concepts, the goals and policies, the vision that's been indicated and agreed to by, or the vision that's been expressed by both council and the community. But the implementation component of that is where we do our best to ensure that the development patterns and the form that takes place in the Broadmoor area is what we've been sharing with the public. So more walkable, the closer proximity of businesses to residences, the higher densities, the open space, the gathering places, both public and private, the more of the public realm, the things that we've been sharing with the public, we've designed and hope for kind of Broadmoor to be the development standards, and the implementation of those codes will come back to you with those code amendments. That is sort of that's the black and white portion of it that is often overlooked in some of these bigger plans.
Thank you, appreciate it. Any other commissioners want to say anything or comment before we move on to the next workshop item? Okay, I guess we'll go on to item B, which is the downtown Pasco Master Plan update.
Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. Similar to the last one, this is an update on our efforts with our consulting team framework to develop a plan for downtown Pasco. There's been a lot of work so far to date on the master planning effort, and we'll summarize that progress in this presentation. So on the next slide, I wanted to share, and I'll read these out loud for you, the approach that our consulting team of the city has taken for the master plan. The intent is to do meaningful and equitable public engagement, highlight the local assets, visualize the potential for positive change in downtown Pasco, support for local businesses, integrating arts and culture, and testing new ideas and concepts. And I think a big one certainly is a plan that is specific to Pasco, not a general plan and blanket approach. On the next slide, you'll see two maps that illustrate the scope and context of our downtown. So on the left, you see a zoomed in version of predominantly the central business district. You can see that outlined in the boundary. And on the right, you can see a broader context of how the downtown fits within the general eastern portion of central Pasco. And on the next slide, there's a bigger context shown here. This is a quick illustration of the downtown within roughly a half-mile to mile radius of it. And I think this helps us see exactly how downtown integrates with the rest of the community. You can see it shaded in that blue, but those pink areas represent developments ongoing or planned surrounding. So on the south across the river in Kennewick, obviously the significant investments they're making with their waterfront in Clover Island. The Cable Bridge, a monument for both the Tri-Cities and certainly here in Pasco. And on 20th and A Street, you can see actually they already used new apartment multifamily that's been constructed on 20th and A. And on the right, further east, by Osprey Point is the Port of Pasco's Waterfront Development District. In orange are the existing bicycle and planned bicycle routes. And I think this helps overlay, provide a bigger context for what downtown Pasco, its role within the community. I thought it would also be important to share that within a half mile or so of the downtown area, there's roughly 9,500 residents and almost 8,000 jobs, employees within a half mile or so of the downtown area, Pasco. So there's a lot of activity that takes place. On the next slide, current status of where we're at. We meet weekly with our consulting team. We met with them this morning. We received a presentation from our consulting team today about existing conditions and a market analysis for downtown Pasco. That'll be prepared. A draft will be distributed for us tomorrow. And there's been some significant public engagement efforts so far. Below on the bottom bullet points, there's a rather successful downtown community survey that had over 100 responses. And then in mid-December, city staff held a downtown visioning workshop at Solon Santa Cruz, and that'll be the focus of the rest of this presentation, that visioning workshop. So we held an evening workshop, roughly 4 hours or so, at Solon Santa Cruz. We had approximately 20 to 25 community members in attendance, 4 current and past council members, and 15 or so city staff, a pretty significant presence by city staff from both planning division, code enforcement, building enforcement, and from our executive and public works staff, parks and recs as well. It was exciting because the event was actually broadcast, the beginning portion of it was broadcast live on local AM radio, and many of our local businesses and community members and city staff were interviewed on live AM radio to share about the planning effort going on downtown Pasco. So there were some common themes that came out of the workshop. Some of these may be surprising, some may not so much. In general, the comments included more things to do downtown, the activation of the downtown itself with public art, murals, outdoor dining, cultural events, streetscape improvements, both addressing lighting, potential parklets, addressing building facades, parking, homelessness, updates to the city's zoning code, support for small businesses, mobility and connectivity or access, celebration of Pasco's history and heritage, and creating a safe and vibrant downtown. And on the next slide, our consulting team conducted live polling during the event for both public, and it was, I forgot to mention, it was held virtually and in person, so this was streamed online through the city's Facebook page. So those who weren't able to attend in person participated virtually. And so the question here was, please list up to 3 words that describe your vision for downtown Pasco: vibrant, diverse, culture, historic, entertainment, and active, rose to the top. And on the next slide, the question was, please list up to 3 words that describe what you see as the biggest challenges in downtown Pasco. Parking and homelessness were at the top here, same with art, lighting, garbage, and a few others. So these are all being aggregated, and it will be addressed in the master plan process. A few photos from the event. There was a lot of activities, boards for community members to post their ideas, share their ideas, take a look at some of the preliminary maps and analysis that were ready at the time. And on the next slide, a few more. You can see some of the community members here participating in what was a pretty successful public engagement event for the city and then the downtown. As far as the timeline, we're roughly a third through the process. That arrow is pointing at the final existing conditions report, which we expect to receive tomorrow. The next portion will be the development of the draft downtown plan. Another open house will be held, and then the final downtown plan will be released early this spring or late this spring. And then throughout this, there'll be numerous more updates with both the Planning Commission and Council. And then obviously adoption. And this master plan and similar to the Broadmoor plan will likely result in comprehensive plan amendments so that city staff can take the results of these plans and conduct city-initiated amendments to the Planning Commission and Council to change the comprehensive plan land uses. So that summarizes the update on the downtown master plan. Our consulting team will be presenting to City Council on February 14th, and any new information that we receive between now and then, we intend to provide another update to the Planning Commission in February and again in March as well to keep everyone up to date on a pretty significant effort downtown. Because of the engagement and the input received so far, staff is working with our consultant to identify ways to expand our initial scope to address in some manner some of the common things that were reoccurring throughout the master plan engagement process. So that ends this presentation, and again, happy to answer or address any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. We're at the blue. So you're saying at some point you'll come back to us with another update and even a draft, and then finally we'll have a public hearing on it. Is that kind of the process?
Correct. And certainly we'll share the existing conditions component of the master plan. It's actually quite valuable to learn about the various components about the downtown, certainly with regards to vacancy rate, maybe not being as high as it's perceived. We intend to look at the renewal rate of business licenses and a few other components as well with regards to the demographics and population employment types in and around downtown. One of the themes and components of this master plan is rethinking what that boundary of our downtown is. We got a few variations of it. There's the C2 zone, the Central Business District. There's also the Downtown Pasco Development Authority boundary as well. And our consultant team is working and listening to members of the public and staff with regards to what they believe is what is downtown to them. Where does it begin? What is sort of that gray blending of boundaries of sorts? And we did hear a potential concept this morning with regards to expanding the boundary, which allows for more flexibility in development in terms of zoning, but also provides an opportunity to have 3 potential neighborhoods within the downtown, including kind of the civic area, which we're at today, the Central Business District, which exists where it does today, and also a big component is connecting our downtown to the Columbia River and the Sacagawea Heritage Trail, which will connect to Osprey Point. So that's where the corridors and that context begins to be really important for us.
Thank you. That sounds nice. Commissioners, any feedback, questions, or comments for staff on this item?
I have a.
Go ahead.
I'm a big proponent of housing, and I know you guys have put a lot of work in on this master plan, and congratulations, fine job. But a constructive criticism I'd like to input here is I still don't see enough emphasis on downtown housing. And all the downtown plans I worked on over the years, there's been a lot of them, the most successful ones, the ones that stood the test of time are the ones that incorporated a large component of housing so that the downtown area doesn't die at 6 o'clock. So I'm just simply trying, and actually I filled out one of those forms, and I don't think I hit the right button, but I just strongly encourage the team to think about incorporating housing in any way they can, renovated old buildings, whatever it is, because when you got people living downtown, they're going to take care of it 24/7. So I just wanted to encourage a strong look at incorporating a housing component in the master plan. Anyway, that's all.
Thank you, Commissioner Hendler. That's good feedback. Other commissioners?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Campos.
Go ahead.
I just really appreciate the getting the city involved in the engagement. So I really appreciated that and that part of the presentation. I do remember, just a question, there was also a survey that was sent out, I think through social media and different stuff. Did we also hear from that? Any results from that survey?
Yeah, that survey was closed, I think last Monday. There was I think there was 110 responses, and that'll be shared. The results of that will be ready likely by the February Planning Commission meeting.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any others?
This is Commissioner Lehrman.
Go ahead, Commissioner Lerman.
Thank you very much for all the community engagement. It looks like you guys put in a lot of work and it was quite extensive. And so thanks for inviting in our Pasco residents to share out their voices and help influence our future. The question I have is what different languages were offered out to our residents of Pasco for these community engagement opportunities?
Well, we did have interpretation services at the public engagement event. The survey was offered in both English and Spanish, and we've been making sure that all of our materials are translated as they should to ensure that members of the community have a fair opportunity to at least be aware of what we're working on downtown. The notices were all distributed during our normal distribution partners such as the Herald and the Business Journal, but also some of the local Spanish language newspapers as well. I'm not sure if that addresses your question.
Yeah. I guess I know there's other populations that don't speak English or Spanish, and so I was wondering if there is, as you had mentioned, there's translation services. I'm not sure if translators were prepared for those other populations, but also when surveys go out, how do we invite in those other diverse voices of our community to be able to positively influence our decision making?
Thank you, Commissioner Lerman. Any others? All right. Well, we have one more workshop item, and that is the Master File CA 2022-001, which is the Residential Design Standards Phase 1. And so I'll turn it over to staff for comments on that.
Good evening, members of the Planning Commission, and I'm not sure what I did to my PowerPoints this evening where the fonts came out so small, so I'll make sure that doesn't happen again. This is an introduction to a staff proposal to update our residential design and development standards in a two-phase process. The purpose of this is, along with some of our previous amendments, is to update our zoning and development standards to increase housing density and flexibility. This proposal follows the likely completion of our House Bill 1923 amendments, which will be before the City Council on Monday, January 24th for adoption. And it aligns with the Housing Action Plan and coordination with housing stakeholders. In fact, we did receive a proposal from the Home Builders Association of the Tri-Cities in support and with ideas for this proposal as well. So some of the objectives of Phase 1 is to address essential or critical modifications necessary to increase flexibility in housing design and options. There will be a significant emphasis on multifamily development and design standards. Currently, the Pasco Municipal Code does not sufficiently address or accommodate multifamily development standards. Most of our design standards are on single family. So there will be a heavy focus and a big update to that portion, or the creation of that code. Density with design, so not big boxes everywhere, but certainly want to make sure things are compatible with what we expect to see here in Pasco. Predictability for developers and those in the application process, so that would include an evaluation of our development review process. Phase 2, we expect to move forward during or soon after the adoption of the Housing Action Plan, which will itself include significant recommendations to address housing in Pasco with regards to incentives or other options that we can do, including increasing housing options downtown. So some of the preliminary revisions that staff has addressed so far with both our consultant developing the housing action plan and also with the help of the Home Builders Association include zoning changes to minimum lot sizes, setbacks and frontages. And on the multifamily side, a focus on building forms and placement, facades, circulation, both internal and outside of the site for both motorized, non-motorized users and emergency responders, lighting and signage, open space and common area design, and parking. We do have a rather aggressive timeline proposed for these changes because we have the help and support of both our consultant with the action plan and the home builders. Some of these changes may be a little bit more easier than prior code changes. So for the next month or so, we plan on, with Planning Commission direction, coming back to the Planning Commission with a public hearing with initial code amendment proposal. And then later in the April timeframe, public hearings with a recommendation if deemed appropriate by the Planning Commission, and then April and perhaps May, public hearings before the City Council with adoption. So with that, that ends this brief presentation, but again, happy to answer or address any comments or questions from the Planning Commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Commissioners, feedback, questions, direction for the staff on this item?
I have a question, Jacob. Is housing allowed in the C2 zoning? Is it allowed?
It is if it's on the second floor of a retail use.
Oh, huh. Well, that's something that might be considered there, you know, in terms of redefining the allowable housing component in C2 zoning. I think that would make a big difference. I know it's not part of the deal, but it's something to consider. Anyway.
Thank you, Commissioner Handler. Others? So the next steps, then, we can expect maybe some proposed code amendments or language or alternatives in the February one, and then feedback on those, and then maybe coming back with the public hearings in April.
Correct.
Or March and April.
Correct.
Okay. Commissioners, anything else for staff? All right, hearing none, I think we are closing on our workshop items, and we have one other item tonight on the agenda. I think we have 7 of 8 commissioners present. Is that correct, clerk or staff?
7 of 9.
Seven of 9. We are open, have 1 open position. So yeah, 7 of 9. Commissioner Bowers is not here, and we have to replace the term for chair and vice chair is ending, and so Commissioner Bowers is the chair, and the vice chair is Joe Campos, who's now a city council member. So he is no longer obviously a vice chair, and so we as a planning commission body have to or need to elect our chair and vice chair. I would one thing we could do is we could defer this to next month when Commissioner Bowers is here, or being that we have 7 of our 8 filled positions here, we could vote for it tonight. The problem, if we defer another month, we might be missing somebody other than Commissioner Bowers, so we might potentially always leave someone out. So I'd love the commissioners' feedback on how would they like to proceed. If there is a strong preference for waiting a month to have Commissioner Bowers present, we can do that, or we can also proceed tonight with elections. The election process is very simple. You can either nominate your peers or yourself, and then we vote on it. It's not a complicated procedure. So we did it. That's the process we took last time. So I want to open up for feedback from the commissioners on how you would like to proceed with this item.
This is Commissioner Myram. One other idea that's been used in the past successfully is suggesting a slate. So a chair and vice chair combo. If you think there's a special chemistry between two to members of the commission, feel free to suggest that.
Excellent idea, Commissioner Myron. That sometimes helps expedite things as well, so. Anybody else have any guidance on how they'd like to proceed? I guess the question I'd ask is, are any objection to proceeding tonight, or on the other side of that, is there anybody specifically wants us to wait? I guess I'm hearing nothing either way, and so I guess I would suggest we probably proceed, since I guess my experience, 7 of 8 or 8 of 9 is a pretty good turnout for voting. And I think even when we did this last time, when we elect Joe Campos and Commissioner Bowers, we didn't have this many, and so we had to vote with even less number. So I like the idea that we have 7 tonight, even though we will unfortunately be missing Commissioner Bowers. So with that, I think I would like to go ahead and open up for folks for nominations. Remember, you can nominate yourself, or you can nominate one of your peers, and your peers can also decide they don't want to run if you nominate them. So.
This is Commissioner Myram. It's a little hard virtually to know where people's interests are, but I'll take a stab at it, and we'll nominate Commissioner Cochran as chair if he's interested, and Commissioner Mendez as vice chair. And again, open to comments and feedback.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Myram. I'm open to that. I have at least gotten some practice, and then I certainly would love to hear from other commissioners, or Commissioner Mendez as the vice.
As Commissioner Campos, yeah, I was actually thinking about the same thing. And so I back that up with what Commissioner Myram just proposed.
Okay. Anyone else? Other nominations, self or others? There's nothing wrong with nominating yourself if you're interested. And thank you. It is harder virtually. I agree. It's harder to read people on the phone. I guess I would, I'm not sure how to do the voting virtually either. Should we have the commissioners, if we propose voting on this slate, should we have the commissioners weigh in with their name and say, I vote affirmative on this slate? Each person, rather, because I don't think the ayes and nays will do it. We have to kind of have them weigh in that way.
I think, Commissioner Cochran, that's probably the best alternative we have in this era.
I'd like to,
This is Commissioner Lehrman.
I'm sorry, we got kind of a collision there. What was that?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Lehrman. Point of inquiry, I did not hear who the vice chair name was given.
Commissioner Myron, you said Paul Mendez, right?
I did.
Okay, so it would be a Mendez or Cochran Mendez slate, I guess, is what's been proposed.
Cochran Mendez slate, yes.
Thank you.
so for the, I wanted to make a nomination as well. I'd like to nominate Commissioner Myram as chair and Commissioner Campos as vice chair for consideration. Thank you.
Excellent. So we have 2 slates. We have a Myram Campos slate and a Cochran Mendez slate. Am I correct? I'm trying to keep all the names straight. Any other nominations? I think the way we would proceed now is we'll call on each person. We'll ask them to vote for slate 1, Cochran Mendez, or slate 2, Myram Campos. Any other noms? Okay, let's proceed. Clerk, maybe if you could call the name and ask for a vote on slate 1, Cochran Mendez, or slate 2, Myram Campos.
Okay. Paul Mendez, slate 1, Cochran Mendez, or slate 2, Myram Campos.
Slate 2, please.
Commissioner Lerman? Slate 1, Cochran Mendez, or Slate 2, Campos, or Myron Campos?
Slate 1.
Commissioner Abel Campos, Slate 1, Cochran Mendez, or Slate 2, Myron Campos?
Slate 2.
Commissioner Isaac Myram, Slate 1, Cochran Mendez, or Slate 2, Myram Campos?
Slate 2.
Commissioner Rachel Teal, Slate 1, Cochran Mendez, Slate 2, Myram Campos?
Slate 1.
Commissioner Jay Handler, Slate 1, Cochran Mendez, or Slate 2, Myram Campos?
Slate 1.
And Commissioner Jerry Cochran.
Oh dear, we have the same number for both. I guess I'm a tiebreaker on my own slate, aren't I? Oh, what an awkward position. Gosh, I could go with either. Both slates would be fine. I'll just go ahead and vote for myself.
Okay. So Slate 1 carries the vote by 1.
Okay, thank you, everybody. I think you made a very easy process that can get complicated. So we'll proceed on that. Unfortunately, would have loved to have Commissioner Bowers, but I think this is probably expedient to move forward. So
This is Commissioner Myram also. I just want to congratulate the incoming chair and vice chair. They're going to do a great job. And I do look forward to also congratulating Chair Bowers, who served during much of the pandemic, during some very trying times virtually. And I just want to congratulate the entire commission on how well we've stuck together, even despite the difficulties, and looking forward to working together. Thanks.
great comments, Commissioner Myram. And I also want to thank Commissioner Bowers for her service and perseverance during the pandemic, and look forward for the entire commission to work with everybody. Any other comments before we adjourn, or any other questions or feedback for staff before we adjourn? Okay, hearing none, I say we're adjourned for the evening. Thank you, everybody, for your attendance, and see you next month.